Hello and welcome to episode number 47 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Jim. And today we're going over casual versus competitive.
All right, so this is like take two.
Two.
We were like 30 seconds into the recording, and then we realized we're not recording. Yeah. So we started that real quick. So, all right, before we get into it, thank you for listening. We greatly appreciate all of you listening. And honestly, we appreciate all of the feedback. For the most part, all of the feedback has been really, really positive. And not necessarily from a you agree with us standpoint, just from the standpoint of all of the interactions have been very positive. Mm-hmm. Especially when everyone disagrees with us. I like getting into the conversations because it helps us learn kind of about how different people think. Because honestly, when it comes to this space, when it comes to card gaming, for the most part, Jim and I agree on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. The things that we don't agree on, it's very, very few and far between, to be honest with you.
Green's a bad color in Magic.
That's the one thing we really disagree on.
And today I'm going to prove it.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah. So, anyway, we appreciate all of you commenting and leaving us feedback. We really appreciate it. So, if you're listening to us on any of the podcasting platforms, if you could leave us a 5-star review, and we would greatly appreciate that. Helps us reach a wider audience. And then if we start getting some of those reviews, we can start reading them on the show for everybody to listen to as well. So, with that being said, let's just jump right into it, all right? So, this episode is essentially part 2 of episode number 45, I believe. Okay. So in that whole episode, so I kind of want to preface this, right? I do want to preface this. So just a reminder here that this conversation is absolutely and 100% arbitrary. Like for most of the conversations we have on here, it's mostly just us giving our opinion. So, and I don't really know if we've explicitly stated this, but pretty much everything on here is just our opinion. When we realize most of the stuff that we say on here is not fact, it's mostly just how we view things, and in this space, in the tabletop and card gaming space.
It's also not financial advice either. Just throwing that out there.
Or legal. Or legal.
They told me to get these games.
Yeah.
Okay, but like if you couldn't really handle it.
Yeah. So I want to start doing the, you ever watch Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast where the rules are made up and the points don't matter. That's right. And then Drew Carey would say is random things. So yes, absolutely 100% arbitrary. None of this stuff really matters, but they are good. I think they're good and fun and interesting conversations to get into and to have. Okay. So with all that being said, like we said, this is basically part 2 of episode 45. So the whole goal, the entire goal of that podcast, of that episode, was kind of like number 1, to let the audience, to let you all into kind of my mind and our mind into how we felt about how we approach games. So in that episode, we talked mostly specifically about the Lotso v Syndrome game from Villainous and how both of us were just really frustrated.
It was great.
Yeah. I think I was more frustrated than. Would you say I was more frustrated?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Okay. Because I know you don't show it.
I just wanted that game to be over.
Like, yeah, right.
I'm like, I don't even. It got to the point. I've done this in a lot of episodes. I didn't care who won.
Right, but that is not strictly a Villainous thing either.
Yeah, no,
that tends to be for you.
Yeah, I'm just saying it got to that point where I was like, I don't care who wins anymore.
Correct.
I just want it over with.
So do you always get to that point? Does it matter what you're playing? It doesn't really matter what you're playing. You just don't like playing long games, right?
No, not necessarily. Like some games I can do, but some I just can't do. Monopoly I can do, Risk I can do.
But how long are we talking here?
I mean, Monopoly can take hours, so
Yeah,
like
but
3
are we
hours.
talking 2 hours or are we talking like 8 hours?
I mean, I don't think I've ever played an 8-hour long game of Monopoly, nor have I played 8-hour long game of Villainous or Magic. The only one's been a video game, so
Yeah, right.
that's a different story.
And most video games you're not doing a ton of thinking. It's mostly just muscle memory and reacting. It's not a lot of thinking that's involved for the most part. I mean, I know those games are.
I just play RPGs and spam X.
Yeah.
attack.
Wait. What's X?
Confirm.
Controller.
Confirm.
What are you talking? No, I'm just kidding.
It's actually a button.
Depending on the controller you're using, for sure. All right, so like the first kind of point of that whole episode was to let everyone kind of get into our mind of kind of how we approached a game like that, right? Mm-hmm. A game like that to where we're wanting the strategy and the game itself to be at a level like, let's just say here. And if it doesn't live up to it, sometimes our initial thought is, well, then this is just a bad game. It may not necessarily be a bad game, but the whole point was maybe that the game that you're playing maybe it's not a bad game. Maybe it's just not for you. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I had that thought. And because of that episode, or excuse me, because of that game that we had played of Lotso v Syndrome, but then there were also other factors into it as well, where I had seen these other videos of people claiming these other games were bad because they should have been made in a specific a way that they had thought, which I just did not agree with. Yeah. So that was kind of point number one. So maybe the title could have been not made for me as opposed to not made for you. I'm sure.
Title could have just been "Don't play this game."
Yeah. So honestly, for me, it helped me kind of think through and work through a situation like that. And it helped me get to a point to where, and again, I realized that I was just frustrated in the heat of the moment because I wasn't having fun because, again, I think part of it too was, hey, I got this new thing and I'm not having as fun as I am, as much fun as I've had with other games in the similar vein. Yeah. So that might have been a little bit of it too. So as we are strategic card game players, and we have a lot of other people in our groups who have very similar interests and think very similarly to the ways we think when coming to stuff like this. Maybe it could help them as well. If they get into a situation to where they're not having fun, instead of saying, oh, it's a bad game. Well, it may not be that it's a bad game, right? It may very well be that it wasn't designed specifically with the type of player that you are in mind. Mm-hmm. And so that was how I viewed that entire conversation. So for me, it was beneficial and helpful in my mind of kind of how I approach situations like that. Now, I also feel like we had a lot of response to that episode that seemed like we missed the point. So I don't know if it was kind of we didn't do as good a job explaining it as we should have, or if people just took it a way that was not intended, which is very possible as well. So we pointed out multiple times through the course of that episode to where... well, hang on, let me back up for 1 second. So the fact that the response was the way it was, I felt like gives us, I thought it gives us a couple opportunities, because a lot of that conversation in response to that episode was really good. We were having a lot of discussions with how people were thinking. Yeah. And honestly, as I was reading through a lot of the posts and the comments, and we had posted some polls as well, I was surprised at the way people were viewed the situation, right? So, and a lot of it stemmed from when we said Disney Villainous was a casual game and not a competitive game, right? So that's where this whole topic really comes from, is kind of that thought, right? All right. So if you're not familiar, which I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who may not be familiar, but for a lot of people who've come to our channel have seen our Disney villainous content, and for the most part, we've on the channel, all of those games have been pretty casual.
Yeah.
And when I say casual, I just mean, yes, we were trying to win, but we weren't. Again, we're gonna get into like what we mean when we say competitive and casual, like throughout this entire episode, right? But when I'm saying casual here, I'm more so saying we were playing it more so just kind of relaxing and having fun. Yes, we were trying to win, but we weren't doing everything. We weren't playing optimally. We missed a ton of stuff, and honestly, a lot of the times when we misplayed, like we did something incorrectly, or we missed something. I tried to point that out. That way, if someone else comes watching our content, they don't make that same mistake as well. So I pride myself in trying to do that as best I can. I don't get it. We don't get it right 100% of the time, but we try. Again, if you're not familiar, there's a pretty serious competitive Disney villainous community out there. And I think it's been around for a while. I think it started with another channel. They were doing some competitive villainous leagues. I believe they're still doing it, but I also know that there was a other YouTuber who was kind of I don't know if he was heading a lot of it up, but I do know he's not doing that content anymore. So I do not know the status of the league or whatever. But I do know that those people are still out there and they do try and play it pretty competitively. In fact, Dixie was in our chat when we streamed about a week ago. And like, that's pretty much, I don't know if that's all she streams, but she does a lot of that. And for the most part, I do know a lot of those people.
She did make it seem like that's pretty much all she does.
Yeah. I do know that she streams other stuff like other video games, but I do know Villainous is like a big thing, a big point of what she streams as well. So one thing I have here. So when we said that Disney Villainous is a casual game, the people in that community weren't too thrilled, right? Which makes sense, right? Like if you're pretty serious about something and then someone comes along and says, well, if you think that they say your game is not as serious as you think it is, like they're going to take it pretty personally. So it's understandable, right? It's very understandable when you're not clear up front with kind of what you're saying or suggesting. It makes sense. I mean, I used to play when I was in high school and college, I used to play a lot of soccer, right? And I'd have to deal with a lot of people like playing football or other stuff saying soccer wasn't a real sport or whatever. Like for the most part, I didn't really care, but like I can understand, like I can empathize and I can understand.
American football for anyone not in America, because what he just said was football twice, essentially.
Yes, you're right. You're not wrong. You are not wrong. You're not wrong.
Just needed to clarify for our overseas people.
Yeah. So when we specifically said Disney Villainous is not casual, it was mostly tongue in cheek. It was very much tongue in cheek. But throughout that whole conversation, one thing we failed to do, which again, that whole comment was kind of an aside to the entire conversation we were talking about, right? But one thing we did not do was define our terms, okay? And so in talking with a lot of people, and honestly, some of my other friends too, like I had thrown a question similar to this to them. It is very much nuanced. It is very much more nuanced than, this game is casual or this game is competitive, right? So when you don't agree on terms, like that can lead into a lot of different problems, right? So this tends to lead to problems as when this game is X and X isn't defined, there can be an infinite number of definitions for what X means, which would lead to an infinite number of different answers to that question this game is X. Well, what's X?
Yeah.
In this case, what's competitive? What is casual? And honestly, it's a whole lot more complicated than you would think. And honestly, than I initially thought too. Okay. Again, I want to mention this again. This is totally arbitrary. And it's our opinion. You disagree? That's okay. And honestly, I welcome all disagreement and I welcome all comments as well. Because this is just how we view it. It's honestly,
speaking of infinite possibilities, we're about to go on a loop here.
Yeah. So before we go to that loop, it's pretty, I wasn't surprised. I was not surprised. All right. So after that episode, I had posted a poll. Okay. And the poll reads, so I posted, receiving a lot of feedback from yesterday's podcast, and it's great. Wanting to get more of your thoughts, particularly about what makes a game competitive or casual. Excuse me. So I said, so here is the question. In your opinion, what is the biggest factor that makes a game a competitive game and not a casual one? Okay. So I had 5 different options. If the game was designed and intended to be played competitively was option 1. Option 2 is if there's a lot of thinking and or strategy involved in the game. Number 3, if there are community-led tournaments and leagues. Next, if there's an official tournament support from designer/publisher, and then other, comment below. Other received 6% of the vote, and there were a total of 69 votes. If there's official tournament support from designer publisher, it was 0%. Number 3, the third most popular result was if there are community-led tournaments, leagues at 12%. 25% said if the game was designed and intended to be played competitively. That was 25%, and that was our initial contention. And we still kind of hold to that, and we'll talk about that. We'll get into it. Overwhelmingly, the majority of people responded if there's a lot of thinking and or strategy involved in the game, and that was at 58%. 58% of people who responded to that poll said what makes a game competitive is if there's a lot of thinking and or strategy involved in the game. I disagree with that. I do not, for me personally, I do not think if there's a lot of thinking and or strategy, that means a game is inherently competitive. If you agree with that statement, let us know why you think that. So in going through the rest of this, we'll kind of lay out our, definitions and kind of what we see. Again, recognizing this is all arbitrary.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested. So, Jim, let me ask you, are you surprised? Well, are you surprised? Are you surprised by that result? Like I kind of am.
I'm more so surprised that it was kind of that high.
Yes, same.
Like, I'm not surprised that it was number 1, but I'm
surprised it was at 58% of the
double the next.
Yeah, right. So, additionally, okay,
because like that's so much stuff.
Like, personally, I don't think if just because I'm thinking about a game, if I'm putting a lot of thought into a game, that is that's the determining factor as to what makes a game competitive. Now, that is not suggesting that it cannot be competitive, because it most certainly can. 100%. We're going to get into this. Anything can be competitive or casual. Anything can be. But again, it all comes down to how you define it. Like, how are we defining what's competitive and what's casual, right?
Yeah.
So again, according to that poll, 58% of people thought if there's a lot of strategy or thinking, that is the determining factor. So they did not choose the designer's intent, right? They specifically chose how much thought and strategy I'm putting into this game.
Yeah.
That's what determines it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay, let me ask the audience, okay? If you were to look at our villainous games, go watch our villainous content, would you tell us that that's competitive, okay? Would you say that that's competitive? Or would you say that's casual, okay? I would assume that the people who answered yes to this poll would probably say no to that. But I don't know. I do not know. But I also want to reference that we had a couple comments, okay, and very, very few. But there was one comment that was reiterated, essentially what they had suggested. I'll read this first paragraph here. Actually, no, I'll read the last paragraph that they put here. This is from Turtle Dude 05. He says, so to summarize, I think a game can be casual and still have a competitive scene. If the designer's intent was to make a kitchen table game, but that game can evolve into a competitive game if the producers of the game wish to encourage and develop the interest shown in the community. We kind of said something very similar in the episode. We did say anything can be played competitively or casually, right? Because I mean, when we talked about, when we specifically said a casual game turned competitive, we referenced Villainous specifically because of the competitive community that we know is there. And then when we referenced a competitive game gone casual, we referenced Magic, right? Specifically talking about the commander scene for the most part. So again, we recognize that a game can be competitive and casual.
Yeah.
It can go both ways. But again, ultimately it comes down to how you define it. So how do you define it? How do you define what's competitive and what's casual? Well, I think you got to start. I mean, where do you start with definitions, Jim?
Google.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is super interesting, right? So we turn to nobody but Merriam-Webster, right? So I looked up multiple definitions. Okay.
Loop time.
Of different words here. Of course it would do that. So, okay. So we looked up a few words. The first word I looked up was competition, right? Definition of competition: the act or process of competing. Okay. And then number 2 was a contest between rivals. I'm like, all right. So the act or process of competing. Okay. Well, all right, what's competing? How do you define competing, Mr.
Well, let's go
Mr.
look
Webster?
up competing, Dan.
All right. Competing in a state of rivalry or competition.
Dan, what's competition?
Competition is the act or process of competing.
Okay, but now before we continue there.
Yes. Yes, Jim.
What's competing?
In a state of rivalry or competition.
Huh.
So the
Thanks,
next
Google.
So, all right. So I looked up, okay, what's rival? Because they reference a rivalry in Rivals.
Does this mean it's an illegal loop because you have no way of exiting
You have no way of exiting the loop. Yeah. All right. So the definition of rival, A, is one of 2 or more striving to reach or obtain something that only one can possess. Yeah. All right. So I think we're getting somewhere. Something that only one can possess, like a win, like a W.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. That makes sense. And then also B, one striving for competitive advantage. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, what's competitive?
Competition, Jim, the act or process of competing. Would you like competing again?
Yeah, can I get that one again?
In a state of rivalry or competition.
Dan, I hate this loop. Let's exit this. Counterspell. All right, continue.
Oh man. So ultimately, I think what competition, competing, according to the dictionary, boils down to is rival, right? Rival or rivalry. So the next thing I looked up was casual. Okay. There's multiple definitions for casual, but the one that I think makes the most sense for our purposes here is lacking a high degree of interest or devotion. I that kind of applies. Okay. I liken that to, I don't care if I win.
Yeah.
You know? So that can be an instance of casual.
Also, looking at it of interest or devotion as well. It's like, I'm not really putting a whole lot of time into this. I'm just playing it when I have people to
also,
play.
that's here. Number 3, done without serious intent or commitment.
Yeah.
Okay. Or feeling or showing little concern, like nonchalant, that they reference nonchalant, excuse me. So, okay, I think we're getting somewhere. We've got rivalry, casual. So the next thing I looked up was I did not pull it up, so give me 1 second here. I looked up game. Like, how do you define game? There's actually a few here. So the first that is beneficial to this conversation is a physical or mental competition conducted according to rules with the participants in direct opposition to each other. So I have a question then. Are cooperative games then? According to that definition, would cooperative games be considered a game?
Well, the direct opposition could also be like a bot, essentially.
No, but it specifically states with the participants in direct opposition with each other. So is D&D a game? According to this definition.
Yes.
Really?
There's a DM.
So in your mind, is a DM and the participants in direct opposition to each other?
Yes.
Really?
One is directly looking to cause problems for the group.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I can see that. Okay, that was just the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that definition. I'm like, would D&D be considered a game according to this definition? Okay,
yeah,
I can see that makes perfect sense. Okay. But I don't think, according to this definition, co-op games like Lord of the Rings, the card game, would be considered a game. According to this definition, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a little
bit
different
arbitrary.
Because
totally arbitrary.
Because again, like, yes, it's the participants of me and you, but we're having direct opposition of what is trying to stop us, which is the adventure.
Right,
or
but is called. That again? So then we'd have to say, how do you define a participant? Yeah. Like, obviously, I think we would both agree that is absolutely a game.
Yeah.
But it's just now we're looking at this definition. So we then have to say, okay, Mr. Webster, how would you define participant? And honestly, they would probably define the villain deck essentially for Lord of the Rings. They would view that as a participant. I would very much assume. There's two other definitions that they have for game here. One is any activity undertaken or regarded as a contest involving rivalry, strategy, or struggle. Okay. And then thirdly, this one is activity engaged in for diversion or amusement. So that would be more applied towards the casual space then. Yeah. So again, I thought about looking up the game and just kind of see where we fall. And honestly, I'm not surprised. The only thing I was surprised about was that that first one I mentioned. I thought that was pretty interesting. So one thing I've got here, so typically in this space, okay, how we define what we mean when we say a game is competitive or casual, okay? There's two big factors kind of that come into play that determine if we think something is competitive or casual, okay? All right. So number one, we talked about this in episode 45, is the intent of the game designer, okay? We think that that's a big factor. But is it? Like, really, is it? So you have the intent, but the flip side of that coin is I have how the majority of the player base plays the game, but that the majority doesn't even matter. Nope. It's more application, like how the game is being played. Okay. So I want to say my points here, and then we'll get into some conversation here. Okay. So, how the majority, so my first thought was, again, if we say something is competitive or casual, I think what we would do is we would look at how the majority of the player base plays the game. And that would determine in our minds how we thought if a game was competitive or casual. If we're not involved in the game, like if we're not actively playing the game, we would probably look at how we think the majority of people play the game, right? If I'm not a tennis player, right? Like, I don't play tennis. Is tennis a competitive game or casual? In my mind, I'd probably say, yeah, I'd probably put tennis in the competitive category. Yeah. I don't play tennis. I know that there's a ton of people who play competitively. I also know people just play it for fun and casually. But for me, I'd probably put tennis in my mind in the competitive category, right? I don't play tennis, but I look at how other people play tennis, right? Now, obviously, it can be pretty difficult to pinpoint how you think the majority of people play a game if you don't play it. Even if you do play it, it can still probably be pretty difficult to pinpoint that, right? But figuring out and thinking about how the game is played, it does, like, number one, like, it at least acknowledges the player base, right? So look at Magic, right? Is Magic as it exists now the way Richard Garfield intended it to be? I've heard a lot of things, but from my understanding, it is absolutely in no way, shape, or form the way Richard Garfield intended it to be. My understanding, I could be way off on this. I thought that Richard Garfield's intent for Magic was for it to be a lot less competitive and much more casual than what it turned into. Okay. Now, does that mean Magic is casual, not competitive, or vice versa? I don't know, man. This honestly is a very nuanced conversation, I think, that we're having, right? But so last time, what we said was what really determines whether a game is competitive or casual is how it's played. Or excuse me, not how it's played. We said the intent of the designer, right? But in having these conversations, the majority of people were like, well, it depends. It can be played casually or it can be played competitively. Yes. But that's not what we were saying. We were trying to say, let's just look at the game, right? So when we were saying Disney Villains is casual, okay? Again, not taking away from people who play it competitively or play in a more competitive manner than which we do, okay? But again, we're looking at it from the lens of how it's designed, and then number one with Villainous, how we play it, and then how we see a lot of other people playing it, and then having conversations with other people who have done work around the game and their initial thoughts of what they put into the game, and then arrived at the conclusion of, okay, then in our minds, it's a casual game, okay? Again, when saying that, not suggesting it can only be played in that way. Absolutely not.
We're also looking at it in terms of we're Magic players or other card game players.
Right.
And it's like, all right, well, if we take a pre-con deck of Magic and never change it, how's that going to do against things we're used to in Magic?
Right. And honestly, I didn't even write any of that down.
Yeah.
Because, like, every player of every kind of game takes their past experience and their past knowledge and then applies that to their current situation. So in this situation of Villainous, like you said, we're Magic players, right? In our minds, Villainous is a card game, right? There's multiple different there's multiple other areas, okay, that are added onto it, but in our minds, we kind of view it from the lens of it's a card game, right? So card game, cool. We play card games. We play Magic. All right. This is how we play Magic. This is what we know about Magic. This is how the rules of this game work. Okay, here's a game. It is not Magic. It is not it at all. It's similar in a way. It's a card game, right? So we apply what we know to this other game that's similar, and then that kind of gives us a head start, right? When learning something new, right? Jumping into a game, okay, we've got a kind of a head start on somebody who just jumps in, has never played anything that's remotely close to it, right? So anytime there's ever any question about a ruling or how this is played, we look at what we know, and that's card games. That's Magic. So we're like, okay, in Magic, this is how this interaction would work. But then usually the next thing we say is, but we don't know if that was the intent of this specific interaction, right?
Yeah.
So we start with what we know, then we go to, okay, well, what does it say in the rules? How was it intended to be played, right?
You know what I'd love to do?
Yeah.
You know what we should do one day, right? We'd have to use like non-clear sleeves in order to do this, though.
Okay.
We'd pick a character, a villain, right?
Okay.
That's how you're going to be winning the game, right? You pay attention to every slot on their board as well. You can pick half of the cards in their deck, their starting deck, and take any other 15 that you want, because it's 30, right?
I believe you're talking about the villain decks.
Yeah.
I believe they're 30. Yeah.
Okay. And so then you
The
take
fate decks
any,
normally are 15.
all right, so then you take any other 15 cards
Okay.
from just like one set, maybe like what, a cap of 3 cards per whatever you want to make it, whatever, 2, 3.
I think
And you just put those bad boys all together. and then right, for the fate deck, right? You pick the fate deck for your opponent. So like you make 15 or whatever the card number is, right? Whatever it is.
15, yeah.
And then it's like, this is yours now. Like everything in here that I put together is now going to hurt you rather than.
Oh, so you're saying you would build the fate deck, not you'd pick a character's fate deck and say this is the one you're. Oh, okay, understood.
Yeah, you build the fate deck and you're like, here, this is yours for this game. Everything in here will target.
That would go so terribly.
Woo, I think we got to try this, Dan. That sounds so much more fun.
Dude, let's do it. It's going to go so bad.
It's casual, right?
Yeah.
This is a casual game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, dude, that's funny.
Man, now I'm way more intrigued by Villainous now.
Yeah. Nothing will work. I'm going to gain power and then I don't know what I can do with this. This doesn't even work. I got no clue. Okay. Is your win condition still going to be
whoever the character board is? Yes.
So it would have to be like, so Queen of Hearts, you just need to make sure that you have, take the shot.
The bent boys and take the shot.
That's it. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Okay. And then like Prince John's easy. You just have to keep gaining your power.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude,
this sounds legit, right?
Sounds legit.
This is the new competitive format for Villainous. We're making it happen.
Dude, that's so funny. Oh, dude, let's do it, man.
Oh
that's
man,
so
and we're recording that too. There's no reason we're not recording that.
That's funny. And that'll be hilarious.
Yeah.
People are gonna be like, dude, that is that card. What are you doing, Dan? Jim. Oh my I can see it now.
I can't wait.
Oh, that would be hilarious. That'd be so funny.
Yeah, it would be.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is.
That's a great idea. Oh, that's funny. All right. Okay, so this is kind of where the meat and potatoes of this whole thing is at, right? Mm-hmm. Every game can be played casually or competitively. Every game can be, okay? Yep. So when we said Disney Villains is casual, again, when we said that, we were, again, looking at the intent. The intent of its design and how we play the game and how we think the majority of other people play the game is casual, right? When we said that, okay, I think when anyone says the X is casual or X is competitive,
I'm just going to say, if my parents play the game, it's a casual game. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right. All right. So okay, let's make some distinctions, okay? You've got what a game is.
Yeah.
I think when we say what a game is, we can also say how it was designed, okay? How it was designed to be played, okay? And then you have how a game is played. The community, what the community has done with it, how it is enjoyed by people at home.
Yeah.
Those are two separate things, okay? Now, whether or not they're the same thing, whether or not they stay different, does that have any indication on what a game is? I don't know. But I think we can at least recognize that you have how a game is designed, what's the original intent, and what the initial idea behind the game was. And then you have what it was essentially turned into, right? Yeah. And that's like application, okay? So you've got initial idea, and then you have application over here, okay? But, so the question I think ultimately comes down to, does how a game is played ultimately determine what a game is? I think that's the question, right? Like, I don't think so. I don't think it does. Now, again, this whole thing, this is so arbitrary, and this is so, there's not a right answer, okay? And does it matter if the community comes to agreement? No. I just think it's an interesting topic, right? So, again, what I was very interested because what I saw in that poll was it seemed to me that there's a lot of people, at least in our community, that viewed this discussion in that way. They kind of viewed it as how it's played kind of ultimately determines essentially if something's competitive or casual, right? So like I think it really does come down to how you define what a game is and what is competitive and what competition is. What?
You can't play Queen of Hearts like people can't play Queen of Hearts in our new idea.
Oh, okay. Why?
Syndrome, destroy all allies' items. She's dead, dude. She's gone.
Making sure there's at least one of. But you'll have if you have all of the here in Queen of Hearts you can only have one take the shot. You can't have multiple copies.
No, that's BS. All right, I think there should
Oh
be
wait,
two.
no, that's the villain deck. That's the villain deck.
Yeah.
Oh man. What? Well, you could. That's a. I'm including that.
That's a one-off. I'm just saying, like,
it is
in
a
general,
one-off.
like,
It is a
that's
one-off.
rough.
It is rough. I mean, that's just a rough card.
Yeah, it is.
That is a terrible card.
Yeah, card's hard. The card's hard.
All right. So again, I think this whole conversation really does come down to how do you define what a game is?
Yeah.
And how do you define what's competition and what is competitive? There's going to be disagreement. Like there's going to be disagreement about this and what it looks like. And that's okay. Cause I think ultimately you're always going to have a disagreement on what is competitive and what's casual. There is no good definition.
Yeah.
There's no good. I mean, the definitions are there, right? But in application, how do you define it? Right. So, I mean, Jim, like, do you think the correct answer when asking or answering the question of whether a game is casual or competitive is to really look at how it's being played? Because if you do, then there's no one universal answer on if a game is competitive or casual. Because I think we can acknowledge through this whole conversation that this topic is very nuanced.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like we were saying already, like literally every single game can be competitive,
right,
or casual,
right. So looking at it from the aspect of
or played competitive,
right,
or casual,
played competitive or casual, right? So again, like what is competition? Like what makes
Let's
like
go look.
But here is what makes a game competitive just how it's being played. If that's the answer, okay, then that's what you look at.
If that's the case, then Magic is a
both.
casual game.
Well, right, it's both. So because we were talking about Magic, right?
Yeah.
Because I would personally, I'd classify Magic as a competitive game. Again, just the way I think about it, I would classify it as a competitive game. Mark Rosewater, what's his title? Do you know what his title is? He's head of something. He's a bigwig in the design of Wizards of the Coast.
I was gonna say, isn't he like the number one person for
I think
Magic?
so. I think so. But there's a tweet, and he said like not 10% of Magic players have played in a competitive sanctioned event.
Yeah.
A tournament, a competitive, like a sanctioned tournament.
Yeah.
Less than 10% of the entire Magic player base.
That means locals, which is like the pure lowest of the low.
Yeah, like FNM.
Play.
If you go to an FNM and sign up for like a standard tournament, then you have participated in a sanctioned Magic event.
Yeah. Which is super low.
That's insanely low.
Yeah.
So to hear that not 10% of the entire Magic player base has done that through this conversation, Magic's a casual game then.
Dan, I'm a part of the 1%.
Yeah.
I've gone to like the second highest tournaments.
Yeah. Right. But so what
I didn't do well.
Yeah. but seriously, but looking at that statistic, like throws how I was viewing everything else out the window to me, right? Because then it's like, so then 90% of Magic players have played have essentially played it casually.
Kitchen tabletop. That's about it.
But now it does say Magic. It does say sanctioned event.
Yeah. They just haven't joined in like a tournament.
Which I feel like if you've done any Magic tournament, it's been a sanctioned Magic event.
Yeah.
Dude. Oh, yeah.
And again,
I'm trying to think of,
unless you've had some friends who were like, "Oh, let's play, see who's the best one in the house. We're gonna have a little tournament."
Yeah,
like that's
all
all
four
I
of
got.
us. Yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Yeah. That means 90% of Magic players.
And this was as of March of last year.
I thought it was March of 2020. Was it March of 2020
I believe it said
21.
21.
Okay.
I believe it said
All right.
21.
Yeah, that like flies in the face.
Yeah.
It really does.
That was a year ago. A little over.
Yeah, that just straight up flies in the face of kind of almost everything I've thought about it.
I remember growing up, I was always like, "Oh yeah, the 90s were 10 years ago."
Let's not go there, dude.
90s
Let's
were
not
almost
go there.
30
I know, we know, Jim. We know.
We know.
Okay. We know. Yeah. So yeah, it's this is a very nuanced. I think this really is a very nuanced topic.
Yeah.
So when we said Disney Villains is casual, we're right. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it is. Like, we're not wrong, but
It can be played
also
casually,
a competitive
and
game.
it straight up can be played competitively too.
Yeah.
So
Especially our new format. Like, check that out.
Yeah.
If you guys have any ideas,
Yeah.
PM me.
Yeah.
Hit me up.
So let me also say this. If you thought when we said that Disney Villainous is casual, that we meant it cannot be played competitively, that's not what we meant. That was absolutely 100% not what we meant.
I mean, I probably can't play competitively.
No, I probably can't play competitively either because again, well, it was also interesting. I was having an in-depth conversation with that game with somebody else, in another Discord, and again, the way I approach the game and thinking about it is straight up from other card games, right? Card Advantage, everything that I know about card games, I apply it to that game. It seems to me that the way the competitive community thinks about Villainous is not the way that you would think about playing any old TCG or CCG.
Yeah.
They view it completely differently. It seems like, because when I was having the discussion, like the person that I was talking to was like not necessarily walking through lines, but they were giving me these ideas, and I'm like, the way that I view this specific situation is not the same way you're viewing it. Because again, I'm viewing it through a lens completely different from the way that you're viewing it through.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, and that's interesting. Like, I think it's interesting. Is one person right? There's never one person right in any of these conversations or topics, right? It's just how you're approaching the situation and then how you're figuring it out and arriving at your play line, essentially. Yeah. There is a most efficient line, but determining that most efficient line is very complicated and convoluted at times.
Yeah.
Very, very much so. So I found that conversation very, very interesting. Because like the way I view it is very, very different. So there's no way I could play competitively. Absolutely no way.
I get it.
Because, like I said, I view it so differently.
Yeah, I'd be like, man, I really wish I had these other cards and not these cards that are literally just to be discarded from an effect.
Yeah, and
they do literally
nothing.
Nothing.
There was one thing that somebody, because in that Syndrome Lotso game, it was extremely slow, right?
Yeah.
You were not discarding a lot of cards. Okay. You were slowing me down and you were slowing yourself down as well, but ultimately, who cares? But someone even said, yeah, they're slowing you down, but they're slowing themselves down as well. True, but so what?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, you're at the advantage, because if I have an advantage of you discarding something, you don't care if it goes slower. You're just we're arriving at the same point slower, and then I don't get the advantage I don't get any additional advantage or bonus because you discarded, right? So yes, it takes longer, but you are now theoretically at the advantage because you didn't give me the one advantage that you knew that I had. So because they were trying, from my recollection, they were trying to say that that was a downside. Well, they're just slowing themselves down. Okay, but so what? In my mind, that again, that was just how I was viewing it. So, yeah, yeah, it's these difference of, and it's not even difference of opinion. It's different views.
Because now, like, so going off of that, it doesn't matter if I slow myself down. I'm also slowing him down, especially if I slow him down even more than what I'm already going down, right? Because we're thinking about this in terms of Magic, right? If we're talking about a control list, right?
Right.
I don't care if I take Dan to the 12th turn because now that's what I want to get to.
Right.
Like, that's how I win. But it's also completely different for these decks because Lotso, isn't a control deck. None of these decks are control decks necessarily.
And there's really no card advantage either.
Yeah.
It's card advantage really
end of
isn't
your turn,
a thing.
draw up to 4.
Right. And if you draw another card, so there is really no benefit to
There's
that.
kind of card advantage when you're going up against.
What's
his name? The Syndrome, because it's like have them discard 3.
Oh yeah, true.
Have them blow up their entire.
But I don't think
board.
there's any way. I don't think there's any way for Syndrome to draw more cards. I don't think so.
I don't know.
I can't remember. I don't really think so. I know that there are characters who I love Lady Tremaine. She's so much fun.
I was gonna say we gotta have her protect our fate decks cards.
Oh yeah.
That card is dumb. The next time you be fated, you get to decide. What?
Yeah, yes. Yep.
Wow. Also, teamwork from Syndrome, that card's nuts. To play the next one and then you stack the 6.
We're not having that card.
What do you mean we're not going to have that card? There's no ban list right now.
No, we should. Yes, we have a ban list. We each pick like 5 cards.
Oh, man.
Oh, dude, the more I'm thinking about this.
Right.
It's going to go so bad.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts.
So, anyway. Yeah, at the end of the day, I don't even know if I'm right. It's just, it's all a matter of opinion and how you view it. Honestly, I think it's beneficial when you're having a discussion with someone that you're on the same page. You're on not necessarily equal footing, but you're both saying the same thing essentially. So does it even make sense to ask the question, is this game a competitive game or a casual game? I don't know. It might make more sense just to view it through the lens of how it's being played.
Yeah.
Hey, is Magic a competitive game or is it a casual game? I mean, it depends. We can play competitively or we can play casually. Because there was a definition. You found this one. What did it say?
It was. What was it?
It was like if you're trying to beat your opponent, then it's a competitive game.
Oh yeah.
That's like what it was.
Yeah.
It's like,
something
okay, then
those
everything's
lines.
a competitive game,
Yeah.
then, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I mean, which you can hold that position, sure. But like Monopoly and Uno, right? Can those be played competitively? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can have a competitive Uno tournament. You can have a competitive Monopoly tournament. Absolutely. But when I think of Monopoly and Uno, the first thing that comes to my mind is not, oh man, these are cutthroat competitive games. Now, granted, we've all had those cutthroat Monopoly games for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But when I think Monopoly and Uno, I think those as much more very casual, fun games that are not meant to be taken very competitively, right? So again, the way I think about it, I would say, oh, those are casual games for sure. Now, dude, I think so many of us don't really think about these definitions and what we mean when we say it's competitive or casual, right? So because it's very interesting too, like, when after that episode was released, when we said what we said about, Villainous being casual. there were so many people. I felt like, and even when I asked people this question, like I asked a bunch of my friends and family, like, "Hey, what makes a game competitive or casual? Like, if is Monopoly, like, would you say Monopoly's casual or competitive?" Well, it depends. Depends on how you play it. I'm like, all right, well, that's not really what I asked, because again, in my mind, I'm viewing how you play it separately from what the game is in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Right. But games are never in a vacuum.
Mm-mm.
Monopoly is never in a vacuum. You're actively participating in said game.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't, maybe that's the answer, because you can't think about these things in a vacuum. I can't think about Ashes Reborn in a vacuum. I have to actually participate in the game, which will determine the experience that I'm having with the game.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that's the right answer. Maybe it really truly is just how you play it, and not, we need to stop thinking about these games in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I literally just thought about that. but am I wrong? Because Magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Maybe it's more like on a spectrum.
On a spectrum. Like, it kind of is.
Yeah.
Because how many different Magic experiences have people had? A ton.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you're wrong.
I don't think so.
I know you're trying to be funny, but I don't think you're wrong.
I'm like, now I'm thinking about what's all the way at the end, like Pro Tour.
Yes.
Pro Tour's over there.
What's all the way at the opposite end?
To be like kitchen tabletop.
Yeah.
Over there.
Yeah.
I guess.
I would say so. And then you've got literally everything in between.
You got locals right here hanging out with friends at a locals, hanging out with friends.
This side is the competitive side. That side is the casual side.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, if you're on this side of the line, you're in the competitive side.
Yeah.
And then if you're this side, but even that, if I'm playing on the kitchen table, depending on who I'm playing against,
Yeah.
dude, that can be one cutthroat game.
Yeah, I know.
Or that can be super casual.
Yeah.
This is what we're saying.
It's not even a kitchen table at that point.
This really is this is so nuanced. There's a lot to this.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to have this conversation, because I'm like, okay, yeah, we opened a can of freaking worms, man.
Oh man, whenever I worked at Grapple, right? And people would come in and they're like, "Oh yeah, I play Magic." I'm like, "Oh, awesome. What format do you play?" And they're like, "What?
What's a form? Wait, you mean genre?"
plus snow. And I'm just like, "Oh, okay, I know he's I know he's not an actual Magic
He's one
player.
of those, I've got 120 cards in my deck. Dude, legit.
He's got 2 decks.
Legit. Okay, when I was playing in a game, you probably know who this person is. I can't remember who it was, but I remember that there was this person there.
Okay.
I remember the interaction.
Okay.
They had this deck. They literally had like 120 cards in the deck. And they're like, "Oh, but these cards, they're so good. They're so much fun." I'm like, he's not drawing any lands. I'm like, dude, oh, goodness.
So I don't know who it is, right? But I know I've done that to someone.
You've done? What do you mean you've done that to somebody?
I've done that to someone in a what was it? In the pre-release for, I believe it was Rivals of Ixalan.
What do you mean you've done it? What do you mean you've done it to somebody?
What I did was I took every pack from the pre-release,
okay,
shuffled them all together, took out the tokens, whatever. I didn't even put lands in. I just left whatever lands were in it.
Oh, and you left that? You gave that to someone as their deck? Or you had that as your deck?
That was my deck.
Oh, goodness
And then,
gracious.
I go into the first game, I'm like,
pass.
man, I can't get any land. I got a mulligan. And, I just have complete garbage. I just took 60 cards and I'm like, here it is.
But it was funny though, because they were legitimately like, no, this is good. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, these are good cards.
I understand they might know the mechanics of the game,
Yes.
but it doesn't mean you know what you're doing.
Correct.
You might understand how to
Yes.
use a scalpel to
Correct.
cut an apple.
Right.
You don't know what you're doing when it
Right.
comes to a human body. You will not be the same as a surgeon.
Yeah, very, very true. So, okay. I think this is such a nuanced topic.
This is a fun one.
It's not, and ultimately it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, we're all sitting around a table trying to find enjoyment out of some paper and some cardboard.
Yeah.
And sharing that experience with those around us.
Yeah.
Because so with that, honestly, this does not matter. That's what matters.
And I took that personally.
But that whole villainous conversation,
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Now when I say that, I don't mean if you play competitively, you don't matter. Absolutely not. I want you to be playing that game how you find enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great thing that there's this game that I play it super casually and just have fun. But there's other people who can play that same game that I play and take it very competitively. I won't say serious, but I will say competitively. The fact that we're playing the same game, but you're finding fun through a very different way than I am, I think that says a lot about how it was designed. It says a lot about the makers of the game, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really does. We're playing the same game, so I think we both want to see more of the game. We want to see the game succeed. We all want to have fun with it, right? But how you have fun with it is a little different than the way I have fun with it. Who am I to say the way you have fun with it is wrong? The way I have fun with it is better. Now, I've never said that. I've never suggested it, nor would I ever say or suggest that with anything, okay? But I will say, what I will do is I'll recognize how we have fun with something, how I have fun with something. And then I also recognize, hey, I think there's other people out there who have very similar interests as I do. And if you do, hey, maybe try this or maybe look at this, for instance, right? But at the end of the day, we all want these games to succeed, okay? We all want to share these experiences with old friends or new friends that we found through these games, through these experiences. And honestly, before I went to Grapple, if I never went to Grapple, I never would have met this guy.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul.
But like, it's so cool. Like if I never went to Grapple,
Yeah.
never would have met him, never would have started Hobbies and Happiness. Well, I mean, I didn't start it. He did. Right. But
If I never went to Grapple, I never would have gotten into Magic.
But same. Same. Absolutely. I mean, that was where I picked up a starter deck.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I met the community.
Yeah.
So, you know, ultimately it's these games that bring us together. And if you think about it, that's probably how you found your LGS. That's probably how you found your group of people, because you found enjoyment out of a game. And then you went to a forum. You went to your store. Hey, I really like this game. Are there other people who like it too? And that's how you got plugged in.
Yep.
I don't ever want to take away from that. If I do something that takes away from that, that's going to make me sad. Because at the end of the day,
It's also doing the exact opposite of what we want to do.
Right, exactly.
So
Exactly. No, you're right. So, honestly, I think episode 45, we probably could have approached that topic a little bit differently. But also, I think we can't make everyone happy. And, you know, we're not going to try to make everybody happy. But we're not going to actively try and make people not happy and uncomfortable, right? Especially when we're talking about a game that we like and have fun with.
Like's a strong word.
Or I was gonna say like that I like or you like, right? Because you're not gonna try and get people to not have fun in a game you're having fun with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, I think that's how we end that conversation, honestly.
Oh, actually, that might be a lie.
What?
Does me making sure people who new players in Magic who play mono green have the worst time that they've ever had? Does that count?
Yes, it counts, Jim.
Okay, then yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, I think this is good. I think the fact that we went through this whole thing and then arrived here is awesome and cool.
Yeah.
Right. I think the fact that we published a podcast, we had people listen to it and just react, period. Not in any specific good or bad way. Just react to it, have their opinions, and then give us feedback and say, hey, I'm viewing it through a completely different way than you are. Right. Caused us to go back and be like, all right, let's think more about this.
Yeah.
I think that's great. So, thank you. So thank you for everyone listening and just giving your feedback. And yeah, very curious what you all think. I think where we end, we didn't even end up at any place. We have nothing concrete because you can't be concrete about anything.
You know what I was just thinking about? In our earlier episodes, I would be like, even if you guys leave a 1-star review, just for like the podcast, I'm like, it gives us something to talk about. It's like, well, I mean, I guess they could have said that these are all 1-star reviews of that 45.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Episode 45, half a star. Yeah. So, I've been really thinking about this topic for a few days because I'm like, there's really, when I started thinking about it, I'm like, dude, there's really a lot here.
Yeah.
We took one statement and then just turned it in, and really thinking about it. Okay, there's a whole, it's not black and white. It's not black and white.
Yeah.
It's really, really not. Yeah, I'm very interested. Let us know what you guys think. What's competitive? What's casual? How do you view it? Is it really just come down to how it's being played in that moment, right? Because I think we can all agree that we can't view these games in a vacuum. You can't view Magic in a vacuum. You can't view Root in a vacuum. You can't view any of these games in a vacuum.
Yeah.
They have to be actively played to be enjoyed, to get something out of them. And that ultimately is what's going to determine if it's casual competitive. I think that's it. I think that's where we get to. So with that, we're calling it.
Yay.
So with that, we're going to card of the week.
Yay. Even better.
Card of the week. Jim?
Yeah.
What's the card of the week?
Lightning bolt. Lightning bolt. Lightning bolt.
Man, I wanted... Dang it. I wanted... Oh my God! Lightning Helix! It's Lightning Helix!
We're going with a better lightning
I know.
Helix.
I love that's like one of my favorite moments ever.
Oh my God. It's Lightning Helix.
It's Lightning Helix!
We're going to play that right here.
Craig's down to 3. He's down to 3. He's got one draw phase. He's looking at the top. All right. Char you. I like the play. The crowd is into it. What is on top of the deck? What is on top of the deck? Oh, it's Lightning Helix! Oh my God! Oh my God! Craig Jones is through to the finals! Oh my God! Oh, he collapses. Craig Jones is jumping up and down.
So, Lightning Bolt.
Yes.
A little bit better of a card. Okay.
It is.
Dan, do you know what this card does?
Yes, I do.
It deals 3 damage
It does.
to any target.
For how much? How much money do I got to put into this thing to deal 3
how much
damage?
money?
How much money?
They're about like $2 each.
$2. So every
Yeah.
time you play this card, you got to put down $2.
Yeah.
That's how
Roughly.
it works. Yep.
Yeah. It's a single red mana source. So 1 mana, deal 3 damage at instant speed.
That's crazy.
That's a lot of damage.
when I started playing, when I started playing Magic was Ixalan. Well, Ixalan was in the format in standard at the time.
Weren't you saying Dominaria is when you started?
Yes, it was Dominaria, but the card.
Oh, okay.
The card that I'm thinking of is Lightning Strike.
Yeah,
I think Lightning Strike was in Ixalan.
Yeah,
it got a reprint standard at that time.
It got a reprint in Ixalan.
So that's what I remember, right?
Yeah.
And so Lightning Strike is also 3 damage, but it's sorcery. Isn't it sorcery?
Is it instant?
Yeah, but it's double the cost.
Yeah, it's 2 mana.
It's 1 in a red.
Yeah. Still a good card.
Yes.
Especially for the standard format.
And if you were playing red, you were playing Lightning Strike.
Yeah, you pretty much are.
You straight up were playing it.
And in terms of like cost effectiveness, Shock is better than Lightning Strike.
Yeah, because Shock was in the format as well.
But you pretty much always did want that 3 damage rather than just the 2 damage.
And Shock is 1 red for 2 damage. For 2 damage instant speed. Yeah. So you had all of those direct damage spells.
You had access to Shock and Lightning Strike in that format.
Yes, you did.
So
and
cool.
Everyone that was playing red was playing all of them. Was playing Shock and Lightning Strike.
Yeah, it was such a good time to be playing red.
If you're a red player, that was the time. That really was the time.
It was really like from Amonkhet all the way to Dominaria.
Yes.
So like an entire 2 years, you loved being a red player.
Yep.
It was such a good time.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that was like my favorite standard.
Was
Probably.
it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Kaladesh was also fun. So yeah, I'd say so.
So during that standard was when I started playing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, being a new Magic player, I didn't know Lightning Bolt was a thing.
Yeah.
Because I was familiar with Shock and Lightning Strike.
Yeah.
So when I heard about Lightning Bolt, I'm like, wait, what? It's 1 red mana for 3 damage?
3 damage.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts. So, also, when I started playing Magic, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure most people here know the story of why I stopped playing Magic the first time, which we'll get to. So, when I was building my first deck, it was red and blue. It was a little bit of like a burn deck with like some monsters, some draw cards. It was a terrible list. And but when I was going up against my sister, is the reason I hate this card so much. Vampire Nighthawk. Okay, my most hated card in the entire game.
Yep.
Every time I see it, I'm like, I kind of just want to scoop. Like I just want to get out of there. It's not even that great of a card, but it's still a very strong card. It is a 2/3 beater for 3 mana. It has flying, death touch, lifelink. Okay, it's crazy. But I had 1 card in the deck that pretty much killed it all the time. Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike destroys it. So Lightning Strike, I only had a 1 of though. So I would always try to kill that thing with Lightning Strike whenever I had the chance. But she had more Vampire Nighthawks than I had Lightning Strikes.
Because
I only had the 1.
You only had the
I only
one.
had the 1.
Of course you did.
So I learned that Lightning Strike was like my favorite card when I first got into the game. Later on, found out Lightning Bolt was a thing as well.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, now this card is broken.
That's
and a lot of people think the card's broken.
Yes.
So, yeah.
The first time I heard about it, I thought it was busted.
It can't be brought back to standard, and it cannot be played in Pioneer either. Neither of those formats can have it.
What do you mean it can't? What do you mean it can't?
Like
be brought to
you
standard?
can't bring it. So if you bring it to standard, now Pioneer also has it. And,
Right.
And Pioneer has a lot of really strong red stuff. I'm talking about for format balancing.
Oh, so for future format balancing is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't think you can bring Bolt to
Well,
Pioneer.
here's a question: How many times was Lightning Bolt printed? Do you know?
How many times?
Yeah.
The exact number I am not sure. You can check on TCG.
So
Player
let me look up in Scryfall.
Okay.
Because Scryfall would show.
Yeah, that
it.
works. That works.
So let's see how many. Prints. Here we go.
The last time it was in standard was when it was printed in core set 2010.
So Commander Legends, the new Commander Legends coming out, it's going to have it as a common.
Yeah.
What?
They've been printed in common a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's playable in Pauper.
It's
been playable in Pauper for a long time, Dan.
Lightning Bolt is playable
Dan,
in Pauper?
Pauper, I don't know why people don't understand this. Pauper is literally Legacy Light.
What do you mean Legacy Light?
Legacy is being a format, it has a lot of very powerful cards. Legacy Light is really
because Legacy is like the original sets.
It's still an extremely powerful format. You can do a lot of crazy stuff in Pauper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. All right. I understand what you're trying to say.
So Legacy, like you can win turn one.
Mm-hmm.
You can just win turn one. And then all the way up to like turn 4. It's pretty much that.
Mm-hmm.
Modern is pretty much a turn 4 format to where you want to aim to win on turn 4 or shortly after.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of decks can still do it on turn 3, but that's, different. And then a lot of the times those cards get banned if it's like a turn 2, turn 3.
Yeah.
So Legacy being a very powerful format, you get a lot of very powerful cards in Pauper as well. The artifact lands, those are all banned in Modern. They're not banned in Legacy. They're not banned in Pauper.
Really?
Yeah. You also have access.
Dude, those artifact lands are sick.
You also have access to affinity cards as well. So you're just double
in Pauper?
in Pauper. Yes.
Holy cannoli.
Yes. You have access to some really good burn spells as well.
Why am I not playing Pauper?
I don't know, Dan.
I gotta find some good Pauper decks.
You'll never guess what deck I got in Pauper.
Mono green.
I'm pissed.
You see how I'm wearing all
green? I
green?
told you wouldn't be able to guess. I told you.
I just realized you're wearing all red and I'm wearing
a
all
lot
green.
of red today. I'm wearing Rakdos today.
I literally just realized I was not playing at all. All right, so Lightning Bolt prints, 46 different printings. Now, the majority of the most recent ones are just artwork.
Mm-hmm.
The last set printing, it looks like is, Modern Masters 25. And then what printing is this? That's just a mystery booster. There's a lot of mystery boosters, a lot of secret layers. And then
4 secret layer.
This one, that's a Magic Vest printing.
Mm-hmm.
This
the full art one with the little demon on the side.
No, it wasn't that one. And this is a Masters.
That's
a Magic Online promo.
So
these are
with the card being printed in Core Set 2010. It was in Standard at that time, which is the reason why it is also in Modern. But before then, I think it was a while until
you said Core Set 2010.
Yeah, 2010. Okay. It was because of that printing, and it did a lot of work in Standard at that time, and it put in a lot of work, and that was the reason why it was also being put in Modern as well. Okay. If it wasn't printed in 2010, it wouldn't. It was
printed in M11 as well.
Oh, was it? Okay, cool.
Yep, I got it right here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's legal in Modern, Legacy, Vintage, Commander, and Pauper.
Yeah.
Banned in Historic, not legal in Standard, Pioneer, Alchemy, Brawl, or Penny.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Not a lot of cards are legal in Penny. Penny Dreadful.
So what's Penny? What is that?
I believe it is strictly for MTGO, so MTG Online.
Okay, got it.
If a card is 0.01 tickets.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Understood. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And as long as it was from a certain point. So it was from this date, as long as it was that before then, going into the future, it will be legal in that format until set time.
So I thought you said Lightning Bolt was not legal in Modern?
No. I was saying if it wasn't because of the 2010 printing, that was what first caused it to be played in Modern.
Got it. And it's played pretty heavily in Modern, correct? If you're playing...
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you're playing Red, you're pretty much playing Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
There aren't too many decks, and There is it's a Jeskai list.
Oh, Jeskai.
Kind of. It's really blue-white, splashing red for just added cards.
Got it.
So like the merge cards, that's pretty much what it's used for.
Got it. So. Okay. All right. There's been some really sick arts for these lightning bolts. I remember I went to that Magic Fest I went to. Ooh, that artwork on that bolt is beautiful. I think I got one. Oh, I do think I have one. It was in that small binder. It was in that small binder that I had.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah, that was a beautiful card. Beautiful. So yeah, Lightning Bolt is definitely one of the most popular red cards in all of Magic, correct?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's probably the most iconic red card next to Mountain.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I
guess it's not even a red card, is it?
Mountain? No, it's not.
It's a
colorless.
But one other cool thing about Lightning Bolt is its original artist, Christopher Rush, passed away, I believe, in 2016. The next artist that they had for it, he is now retired from Wizards of the Coast as of 2018.
Yeah, Christopher Rush passed away in 2016.
Yeah. So I don't know if I guess we have the Secret Lair ones. So there's probably 4 different artists for that.
Oh, there's a bunch.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
And then with the new one, from
the promo
Commander. No, I'm talking about Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
They've got a completely different artwork for that. They have the Street Fighter one.
Yeah. The Hadouken?
Hadouken, yes.
Yeah, that's
the Hadouken.
Sick.
Yes, that is so cool. The Mystical Archive. Oh, dude, there's so many.
Yeah.
But the last time the Christopher Rush artwork was used, so is the guy who retired, was that Christopher Moeller?
Yeah.
Because his artwork is very similar to Christopher Rush's. Or no, is it? I'm sorry.
It's a lot different.
It's close. It's close.
The red versus the dark blue.
What I should say is the outline ish. Not necessarily the coloring is very different. Yes.
Okay.
Coloring is very differently, but you see, it just looks similar. It just looks similar.
Yeah, I mean it's a lightning bolt from a sky.
Yeah. It's obviously very subjective.
Yeah.
But it looks similar.
Okay.
Which again, if the idea is a lightning bolt from the sky.
I'll just leave a comment there.
Yes. There's so many. This one Magic Player. Oh man, these are so beautiful.
Yeah.
There's so many great artworks for that.
Yeah.
And this just has me thinking about artwork in card games.
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic.
In that video I sent you, they talked about the cycle that lightning bolt is a part of, and it's like on the verge of being extremely powerful and extremely weak. It is directly in the center. Blue is the most powerful of 1 mana, draw 3, Ancestral Recall.
Yeah.
Black is 1 mana, gain 3 black mana. So you're gaining 2 mana on turn 1. And then lightning
what is that?
bolts.
What is that again?
Dark Ritual.
Dark Ritual.
Yeah.
That's what
Dark
it is.
Ritual.
Yeah.
And then
Ritual
lightning
effects.
bolt. Deal 3 damage to any target for 1 mana. I forget what the green one's called. Something growth? Regrowth? No, it's not rampant growth.
No, it's not rampant growth. It's oh man, my goodness.
But what it does is, and this one is another really powerful one. It gives +3/+3 for 1 mana. So you could say it's
giant growth.
It's giant growth. Okay, that one has been printed the most times as well.
I'm pretty sure it's giant growth.
Yeah. So the +3/+3, it's essentially like lightning bolt as long as the creature is just gets in, right? It's still 3 damage.
It's 3 damage.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And you can also protect your creature with giant growth versus a lightning bolt.
Correct. Yes.
And then the last one, I forget what the last one's. It's the white one. It's terrible. It's like gain 3 life or prevent 3 damage.
Oh.
It's It's rough, man.
But it's white.
It's rough.
White historically has
gotten the shaft.
Yes. It's only in recent years has white really started to take off as a color.
Yeah.
In Magic.
Yeah.
So that's card of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Lightning Bolt is pretty sick. Not gonna lie.
One of the most iconic cards in Magic.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, with that, we've been doing this for a little bit now. I had a very fun time with this episode. Very, very interesting topic. If you've got any ideas for podcast topics that you think we should dive into, let us know. This one was a fun one and a very interesting one. I had fun. Jim, what about you?
I had a blast.
So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. We're just going to get out of here, but thanks everybody. And you know what? We forgot to do, Jim. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch at Jim Morgan, HNH.
You can find me on Twitter at _DG Campbell, Instagram at Daniel.G.Campbell. Now, so when this episode goes live, we should be streaming on Saturday, I think. Depending on when this, I think so. I believe so, yes. So streaming, we're trying to be streaming every other week. So every other Saturday night at around 8 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time is when we're going to be shooting to start these streams. So come by, hang out, have some fun with us. And we're still trying to figure out the whole streaming thing, but we want to keep doing it, try to get a consistent schedule going on. If you head over to our website, www.hobbiesandhappiness.com, you can check out all of our social profiles there. We'll take you to our YouTube, our Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, pretty much all of our social profiles you can find there, as well as links to our podcast and everything there as well. So with that, we're going to get out of here. And thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See you, everybody.
Take care.